Welcome back to Miracle Mindset Motivation. Well, today's topic might blow your mind because I want to dispel the myths that your average teacher teaches about manifesting. And we may have even touched on some of the things that I'm mentioning here. I'm not throwing out everything, but what I want to say to you today might blow your mind. How you manifest isn't anything to do with your thoughts or your mantras, or even the energy, the feelings that you put into it. They are simply part of the process. Today, I want to speak into what I have labeled the identity crisis. Now, I want to give you a few absolute examples. And before I share that, I want to say to you that this has been the key message that I've been using for near on 32 years now in my coaching. What I've realized is that if people think there's something, then they act on it. And the words drop in, the feelings drop in to match what the identity is. So we're talking about pure embodiment here. And this is why, as a coach, I resist the labels, which goes against the mainstream and often gets me into a little bit of trouble. But I'm going to try my best to back it up today and give you some really fresh examples to think about. I want you to really feel into that your identity is the operating system, and that your thoughts, feelings, actions, and results are simply the programs running through the system. So think of yourself as a quantum computer. It is the identity that creates the manifestation. Now, drop me a comment or give me a little thumbs up or a love heart if that's already sounding like something you'd like to dive into. And if you're watching this as a replay, I would love to hear from you. Now, this is key. In my program Pathways, which I still run occasionally when, and it's probably, this is a really good prompt from the universe for me to run that again, a face-to-face and an online session. My key strategy for my Pathways program, which I see absolute results, is to strip through anyone that has interfered with your running system. Anyone that you might need to forgive, anyone that has given you their thoughts, their feelings, their identity, spoken it over you, actioned it over you against your free will. And that often happens as a child. And the key strategy for Pathways being successful is to awaken that person to remember who they are. Who are you actually? If you remember that the core essence of who you are is that you are a child of the divine, that you are a literal God spark trapped within a body that's been programmed with everybody else's thoughts, ideas, and maybe even good intentions for you, but they're not what you really desire, then you will have this huge aha moment. And so I've called this the identity crisis, because what I've noticed in these years of running these programs, and some of these programs have been with rooms full of 500 people. And so I see entities manifest in some people. I see catatonic things happen. I see people split into altars that have separated through a lot of the traumas that they've suffered. We're not just talking about, I can't manifest a new car here. We're talking about root issues. And I want to say to you that the greatest delusion isn't that you are powerless. It's that you forgot your true nature. You forgot who you belong to. You forgot that you are an actual creator. You forgot that if you speak with knowing that you're that, a child of the universe, knowing that the energy there within you is coming from source, you can collapse mountains. You can collapse timelines. And I've proved it in many of the miraculous things in my own life that have led me to doing this sacred work. I'd like to give you one example. And if this blows your mind, chew on it, sit in meditation with it. I don't want to be that person that says this is how it works. What I want you to do is digest this, try it on, see if it works for you, and then trial it. You've got nothing to lose here. So we were in a dire circumstance where I had been evacuated from, I would call it civil war, in 1998 in Indonesia. One of my mum's dear friends had a dream that the children and I were in trouble. She saw me carrying my little kids. I think my daughter was 9 and my son was 4 at the time. So it was many moons ago. And in this dream, I didn't even know this lady very well. She saw fire everywhere. And a few weeks later, literally that happened. It was when Suharto's regime was being pulled down. There was fighting on the streets, looting in every single department store, and you couldn't even buy food because the supermarkets were looted. The banks were looted, so all of our savings disappeared like that. There was a blackout. The media that we were seeing and hearing wasn't presenting what was actually happening. There were tanks and army on every single street with rifles, and it was a pretty crazy time. There were protesters throwing stones, and I remember thinking, where did all these stones come from? Because in the middle of Jakarta, there just isn't access to that type of stuff. So clearly it was an orchestrated thing. And I remember my mum saying to me that the media in Australia was so different to what I was seeing over there. So we had censorship, we had all sorts of things happening. In a nutshell, to keep this short and concise for the sake of the demonstration, I was evacuated supernaturally. I had angelic help. The children and I left, and it was very difficult to leave my husband behind. The thing that I clinged to for that was the sign through my mum's beautiful neighbor that she only saw myself and the kids in the dream. Is this craziness? But not for me. It was an absolute sign that I was going to be safe. Very difficult leaving my husband behind, but I had a few beautiful friends there, and I had blessed the car. They were turning over cars and burning them. It was very difficult. 3 months in, my husband's being interrogated by immigration. How did your wife leave the country? Well, I had done a quantum leap. And how do you explain that to a beast system, to a systematic system that runs in rules and programs, right? So there were some awful things happening to him, and a lot of mental torture as well as physical oppression. And so I really got jack of it. So I sat in my bedroom and I was in child's pose position, and I cried out to the divine, I've had enough. I want him home this weekend. Now, in my logical left brain, I knew that was an impossible request. But what happened? He was home that weekend. We did a quantum leap because I literally commanded it. And this is what I want you to feel into, expand into, step into within your manifestations. It might be your career, it might be your financials, it might be a health issue. I don't want you to pussyfoot around anymore and just dilly-dally with what you're seeing online on Instagram and Facebook by these people that haven't experienced. They're reiterating things that they've learned in books. I want you to take this from me and step into a boldness, a Leo energy, which actually aligns currently. I want you to step into a raw. I want you to step into a rawness of commanding that to happen. And if you're a healer watching this, I want you to implement this into how you serve others. Use your intentions powerfully to shift another. Because if that person has asked you to help them, you are their witness. All they need is a speck of faith. So how is this resonating with you? Is this aligning? Does this sound wacky? Are we going too far here? Like, are these things really landing for you? Now, why do most manifestations not work? Well, we've been taught that manifestation is about thinking positively, and that's important. But even in a sense of meditation, we are there as a witness to watch the thoughts, not to become them, right? So is it even possible to be constantly positive? I'm a naturally positive person, even to the point that it annoys some people. But hand on heart, I am not 100% positive in the things that I think. It's noisy in here. Repeating affirmations, this can work, but you know yourself, admit it. You've been on that gravy train, you've been on that rat race, you've been running around the wheel in Hamper's cage doing the affirmations and nothing's landing. The vision boards, we've all done it. They get boring. They can work. They're a layer. They're a layer to the process. We're saying the mantras. We're feeling grateful. I speak about gratitude all the time here. And yes, that raises your vibration, but they're useful, but they're not the source. Now, source needs to connect with source. And this is what I want to awaken you to today, is that we're not using just any energy here. We're using the DNA, the God spark of the actual universal creator. So for those that are calling on the universe, I want you to really up-level this. We're not calling on created things to assist us here. Yes, they carry the same energy and we can draw that in. We're calling on the actual spark of the divine that is within everything, and that's what I would call God or source. And the other things they're simply expressions of your identity. Okay? Now, let's keep tracking. This is your missing piece. The question isn't, what do I want? Most of us have got that written in a journal, especially if we're doing courses like this. It's not, what do I want? You innately know. You know deep down in your belly what you need, what you're born for. The question is, who believes that they can have it? Did I really feel as a child of the divine worthy that my husband could be home that weekend for an actual quantum leap? Or even in my baby steps back then, we're talking 1998. That's a long time ago. I didn't actually feel worthy, and so my feelings didn't block the manifestation, but I knew who I was, and I knew that that was my husband. Are you seeing the difference here? And if you need a little more explanation, please jot it in the comments, because this is more than feelings, okay? Now, feelings are the energy that you weave in. Faith is the energy that you weave in. But this was my identity. I knew I was my husband's wife, and I literally commanded it. And that's how it landed. Now, I think I blew his mind, because he was on a next day flight, believe it or not. Now, I need to actually have you grasp this. When I prayed that prayer, immigration office was already closed. I prayed it at about 6:30 in the afternoon on a Friday. In Indonesia, they're 3 hours behind, and the immigration office closes at 12. But he got a call saying, come into the office on Saturday. Now, immigration is not even open on Saturday. And here's the weird thing when you're talking quantum science here. He said two beings, two humans, they perceivably were humans to him. They were not dressed in immigration uniform, which looks like an army uniform there. They were dressed in black pants and white shirts. They were calmer. They were gentler. They offered him his punishment, and his punishment was to be evacuated without being black banned. And they escorted him then and there to an airplane and put him in on the flight. I could not believe this when I heard it. And I don't want to leave out the most important point. What happened on Friday night was a huge angelic being came into his bedroom like a portal opened. It was swirling. He said it was seemingly like all the furniture was flipping around the room. I would say the atoms were being recalibrated. He was being shifted into a different timeline. But these big wings of this being standing behind him flipped over his heart space and said, "Do not fear. I will protect you." So, even in the details, I get so excited telling these stories. You know that within your manifestation, that fear will be the thing that blocks you. So who's with me in faith here to shift timelines and to actually co-create with the energy of the Godhead that is there for you to use, there for you to literally tap into. We're not victims here. When we travel at this state of consciousness, everything is possible, no matter what anyone else thinks or says. Now, you cannot out-manifest your identity, and herein lies the issue. You can affirm, "I am abundant," we do it here, but if your nervous system believes that you're not enough, guess which one creates your reality? It's your identity, okay? Now, if you really, really think that you're poor, for example, guess what you're going to manifest? If you really, really think that you're old, guess what you're going to manifest? And we've got beautiful humans like Prince, the musician. He spoke into this. He never ever celebrated a birthday, and he explains why on his videos. He says you have one birthday. That's the day that your soul landed within your body. You came into this 3D reality, and anything past that is celebrating aging, celebrating the matrix, celebrating Saturn, actually, celebrating that karmic loop. So if you think about this deeply, I want you to really think, who am I? Well, I am a soul that's here to experience every good gift that has been given to me by the divine. And I made pre-arrangements for that before I came into the avatar. Now, when you realize that, I knew within my identity that it was angelic beings that had put my husband and I together, so I could wrestle with time. I could wrestle with circumstances. I could wrestle even with karmic entrappings. I could wrestle with what other people had spoken over me. Okay, your identity was programmed the same as mine was. Like these types of issues, everyone's got a lot to say on it, right? Everyone. You may be having marriage issues. Everyone's got a lot to say on that. Leave him, do this, do that. You may have bills to pay and not have the finances in your bank account, and everyone has an opinion on that. But I want to leave you with this imprint today. You can move mountains. You can shift them. And it boils down to who you think you really are. If I thought I was an orphan and homeless, I would act like it. It would resonate in my body language. You can see what happens when somebody's homeless, right? There is an aura around them. But if I thought I was royalty, if I knew I was royalty, if I remembered that I was royalty, I would look different. I would speak differently. My posture would be different. How I managed who's around me would be very, very different. This is your remembering. Because before you could choose, you were told, be good. Don't be too loud. Don't take risks. Money's hard. Stay safe. Fit in. Don't disappoint people. God forbid. And eventually those beliefs became your identity. Most of us are innately insecure in our manifestation ability. And I've alluded to this, but the matrix loves labels. If the matrix has labeled you anything, a schizophrenic. I have clients like that. If the matrix has labeled you an alcoholic, and if that becomes your identity, you see how we're pushing against mainstream here, and this is why this needs to be in an enclosed environment, not on my socials. These things will blow people's mind. If I think I'm anxious, I will be. If I think I'm broken, I'll act accordingly. If I've been told I'm shy, if I'm unlucky, if I'm just a helper in the family, that will follow through into my career. I'll never think like a boss. Yeah. If I am labeled the black sheep, then I will be acting within that wave stream, within that identity crisis. Every label becomes a prison if you wear it long enough. Now, this is the story of Joseph, Technicolor Joseph, whose brothers were jealous of him. Joseph was the one that was Christed. You can tell that Joseph was Christed because of the coat. The coat's a symbol for his auric field. What happens when you shine? Others don't like it, and they try to pull you back into this labeling. They try to pull you back down to their level. They try to not have you outshine their labels that they've given their identity. But we cannot do the work for our family. We cannot do that work for those in our vicinity. We are the ones that are going to change things. You see, Joseph ended up ruling Egypt, and this is a symbol for all knowing, stepping back into his divinity, stepping back into knowing who he was. And an integral part of that was forgiveness. Okay. And I really hope that today's dialogue, you are seeing this scarlet thread that I'm weaving for you, because identity is simply a story. Now, when you read ancient scriptures and listen to that word, your script, a book should be telling you who you are. But on the contrary, in religion, it's often told us who we're not, or that's been the interpretation for those that are leading us anyway. Your identity is personality, habits, your fears, your limitations, but they are not your soul. They are learned programs, the programs running the system. Your system is what I'd really like you to lean into today. And if your identity is in the divine, then there's nothing that can stand in your way. No circumstances, no family genealogy, no spell, no opinion of another, no education can hold you back. You are a child of the divine, and this would have to be the core essence of my whole business ministry model. Is this landing for you today? Have you thought about this? Let's be honest. Let's sit with this. Is this shocking for you to learn that you can override the programs by simply changing your identity? Is it possible? Well, just like an actor or an actress steps on stage and dresses accordingly, we can evolve, we can shift and change. I've done it a gazillion times. Do I dress the same way now as a sound healer to how I dressed when I worked in the media? No, we're playing a game with the energy here. So if you start to embody it, becoming it, eating it, just like Enoch showed me, you eat of the fruit of the tree, your nervous system follows. You create your own programs because your soul is remembering and then your ego forgets. Now think about people in business. A lot of chasing accolades, chasing diplomas, certificates, education, university degrees. A lot of that is ego driven, hence the black Saturn cube that is placed upon the head when you graduate. These things within the matrix are not a coincidence. They are by design. They are programmed. But you're not just some clever parrot that reiterates somebody else's thoughts. You have direct access to the divine to pull in all wisdom that you need, with or without a degree. Isn't that incredible? Your awakening isn't becoming someone new. It's remembering, allowing that switch to go off of who you've always been beneath the conditioning. And scripture speaks about identity. This was said to Moses, I am that I am. And we use I am in our meditations, in our affirmations. I am, and you add whatever it is that you feel you need to practice, to enjoy, to pull in. Yeah. And I am something quite different today to what I was yesterday, because outside of the ego, there is no time. And that is a very bizarre concept for us. But the words aren't simply a name, I am. They point towards pure being, pure essence, long before labels, long before fear was spoken or programmed in. Before roles, there is simply I am. And this is where meditation helps, because we just sit. We just be. I am who I am in great I am. And I say this regularly because this reminds me that I am a child of divinity. And therefore, I can override a corrupted program that has hijacked me and tried to use my energy to manifest for that corrupted beast system matrix. Your consciousness creates reality. Reality follows consciousness. Who's the master then? Right? Sometimes we get so stuck thinking that this is my reality. At the moment, my house needs a renovation. This is my reality, but there is so much more that the divine has shown me. And so do I energize the negative, or do I trust in the positive, unseen actions of what my soul actually knows? Wow. Identity follows what you repeatedly believe about yourself. This is the symbol of the deciduous tree. It loses its leaves or its beliefs each season. It's cyclical until that tree is calm enough to grow up and become an evergreen. And this is biblical. It is the evergreens that are a symbol, an occultic secret symbol of the protectors of the forest. That's why they're used for magic. We change the identity and reality catches up. So if you are assigned, if you're on a soul mission and you know it to be true, you've remembered, then dress accordingly, speak accordingly, live accordingly. If you've been shown that the divine's going to give you more money, please don't be stingy. Do you hear what I'm saying here? Because your identity dictates who you are. Life is a game. Imagine life as this giant game. The rules never change, only your character did. And that's the only essence that you take with you when you leave this plane. It's your character. You forgot, though, that you were the player, and you became convinced that you were only the avatar, the body, but you're not. Consciousness is having an experience through your eyes, through your ears, through your nose, through your mouth, through your heart space, through every single organ that holds these emotions. And you are simply the vessel here for consciousness to experience. The avatar, your body, your career, your age, your bank account, your relationship status. These are part of your avatar. They are not who you are. Now, I had an out-of-body experience once. I was taken to a heavenly dimension by an ascended master. And as I entered through that very, very cold portal, I remember looking down and seeing my body not lying on the bed. It was standing up and fighting like a kung fu master here. And I remember saying to myself, which was a weird concept in itself, I was saying to myself, who am I? Like bizarre, right? And this ascended master said to me, you are this, which was what I was experiencing outside of the body. I could see all, I could perceive all. I looked down at myself fighting and realized that the only thing here I was fighting against was myself. There was no one else there that I was fighting with. But I remember distinctly thinking this is where they got the concept for the Kung Fu movies. This is wild. And I'm still, befuddled by it. I sit there often and I sing to the divine saying, who am I? What will we do today? Because I'm not separate. I'm one with that. I can't wait to get back. And I know that this was a genuine experience because I had two friends in that bedroom. It wasn't even in my home. I was visiting a friend in Western Australia. She witnessed this. And the visitor witnessed this. They felt the cold of that portal dimension. They saw my body fighting. I mean, these things change us, but was I always that? Yes. Are you always that? Do you have access to different dimensions on the daily? Do you go there even without knowing? Or are you still operating in a system that you're cut off, that you're separate? Because remembering changes everything. I will definitely, that was like a timestamp in my memory that changed me, one of many. I'll never be the same. I know I have a key, not just to take me, but to take my clients to that higher plane, because if you have accessed that, that's how energy works. And when you remember who you are, you stop chasing, you start creating, you stop proving, you start expressing, you stop surviving, you start playing. And I want to add something to that I didn't think of when I made these notes. You stop giving a shit what other people think, because you have access. You have access to everything. New identity statements that I'd love you to practice for this month. Instead of affirmations, let's shift it up a gear. Let's practice remembering. I remember that I am creative. I remember that I am supported. Well, that feels good, because sometimes we look for support within the avatar dimension. Stop. Look for support within the spirit dimension. So much more powerful. I remember that I am abundant. You have access to every single freaking timeline, and surely on one of those timelines, you're incredibly wealthy. Remember that. I am worthy. I remember that I am consciousness having this human experience, and notice how different that feels within your body. It may even feel uncomfortable until you get used to it, until you have your aha moment. The question to ask daily is this. It's not, what should I do today? Instead, try this. Who am I choosing to be today? And then I added, and I mentioned that to you, what will we do today? I'm accessing my multiple faceted identity within the Godhead. Wow. This blows my mind, because to somebody that has no idea what we're talking about here, this is perceived as fairy tales, impossible. But remembering your original self, I've mentioned this on a training before. I was shown this. S is for energy, is serpent. It's your kundalini energy, and elf. This is the little you in the avatar. This is the little baby you inside. This is the house for your inner child, actually, hence my picture that I have on the starting slide of today's presentation, and I'll go back there at the end so it reminds you. This is your shadow. This isn't your giant. Close your eyes. Take 3 slow breaths and imagine meeting yourself before the world told you who you were, before school, before family expectations, before criticism, wow, before fear crept in, before comparison, and now journal. Maybe you're doing that now, or maybe you're making a mental note to jot that down when you get to a desk or back home. But please exercise this homework. It's life-changing. And then complete these sentences. I have been pretending to be boom shaka. What is your identity in? Being the sister that stepped in for your mother when she was at work all the time? Was it being a carer for somebody that was sick in your family and that's become your whole identity crisis? Is it being the fixer, trying to help others when you're not willing to help yourself? People told me I was. People told me that I was too talkative all the time. I still hear it. And yet my soul knows that I was born to talk, born to share, born to be the witness, to say other things that others are afraid to open their mouth for, born to speak truths that cut and divide soul and spirit from avatar. And the role that I've been playing is divorcee, grieving wife. These things should not become our identity, and herein lies the issue that I see in many, many clients. You take it on, you dress like it, you walk like it, you talk like it, you think like it. The program becomes the identity instead of the computer deleting the file that isn't serving so well. I'm not saying here don't grieve, don't help another. I'm just saying don't let a part of your life become everything in the essence of who you are. I was poor once, and so I dressed rich. And guess what happened? I thought rich, and guess what happened? Did I stay poor when I thought about abundance? You get my drift. Now ask your higher self, who was I before I believed these stories? Write whatever comes. No judgment, no editing. And finish these beautiful statements. I remember that I am. I remember that life, remember God's woven into everything there, that life supports me. Life was created. This is where prayers to the universe, I negate that. You've got to pray above created things. We pray to the source that is in things, and guess what happens? We attract those things to us. I remember that abundance, and one of the things I add in there is my birthright. You'll hear me say that over and over again. Because if I'm a child of the divine, I should not be living in squalor. The best of the best, I have access to it. I remember that love is not only mine to give, but mine to receive. I remember that my purpose is, and this is key, to your manifesting your dreams and to unlocking with the key of love what your soul purpose actually is. And here is the final reflection. Identity isn't something you build. Identity is something that you uncover. It's already there. It's hidden. It's like the jewel within. Every layer of healing is another layer of remembering. And so there's an up-leveling in the video game. You are not becoming someone new. You are remembering the ancient you. You are simply returning home to yourself. Glorious, magical, majestic. When I think like a king or a queen, I act accordingly. But I'm not going to think that unless that's my identity. And therein is the matrix trick. It's disconnected you from Most High Creator, and you forgot that you are offspring. Here's a weekly challenge. For the next 7 days, catch yourself every time you say, I'm just, you just put a block, a roadblock to source. I've always been. Oh my gosh, how often do I hear this, particularly from family members that are not willing to work on self? When you hold somebody accountable, for example, instead of working on the character, e.g. the identity, they will blame shift and say, I've always been. But are you doing that too? That's just who I am. Pause and ask instead, is this who I truly am? Or is it simply a role that I've been playing in my victim state? That simple question begins to loosen the grip of old conditioning and invites you to choose your identity consciously rather than unconsciously. Manifestation is not about becoming someone else. It's about remembering who you've always been. The moment your identity changes from I hope I have a new business, or I hope I have enough to pay that bill, or I hope that I'm in a loving relationship, stop. Let's switch it up to I know. It's what Spirit's whispered to me as the knowings unlocking. This is key. Your reality then begins to follow. Wow. Wow. And as promised, I'm going to skip back to the front slide and show you who you are within your little avatar, your little elf suit here. The shadow, holding the inner child that birthed in as a spark of God's consciousness to experience things that only you can see, only you can feel. And all that data is going back to the crystalline throne, back to the energetic space of the actual quantum computer of this incredible universe. Isn't that awesome? Here's your remembering. I really pray that this has helped you. Drop me a comment if it has. We'll stay on for chat. And if you're watching this as a recording, I look forward to hearing from you via text message or email. Thank you for being here. You are amazing, child of the divine.